Hello.
Please introduce yourself to our audiences in the present and the future.
Uh, yeah, I'm Ben Morris. I'm a senior at Middlebury. I'm a molecular biology and biochem major, CS minor. I'm from Watertown, Massachusetts. Uh, yeah.
And so this is your class of 2022, or are you 2022.5? Are you a super senior, just a regular old?
I have one more semester.
And
First year.
and this is it. Are you feeling the tension yet, or is it just sort of the
A little of both. A little bit of excitement, a little bit of, you know, it's a big change.
the future? Who knows what it's going to hold? I mean, as we found out a couple of years ago, things can change so quickly, way beyond our control. And so
Yeah.
being resilient, and that's one of the things I admire most about Middlebury students that I've met and talked to over the past couple of years is keep on keeping on, keep on doing the work. And your work is what brings us talking together today. Prestigious fellowship has come your way. Talk a little about the fellowship, what it means, how you applied for it, that sort of process. Inspire some other students to go out and take risks and be daring.
Yeah, so I received a Keasbey Fellowship, which will fund 1 year of master's study at Cambridge. I will be It's a MPhil in biological sciences with a pathology. So it's a completely research-based master's program. I don't take any classes. I'm joining a lab that studies immune regulation in cancer and normal immune function. Um, I'll do research in that lab for about a year and then write a thesis, and then I'll leave to the U.S. So I've never been to England before. I wasn't really considering applying this kind of program. My long-term plan is to apply to PhD programs starting in 2 years, and I knew I wanted to do a year or two of research before that. About a year ago, I received a Goldwater Scholarship, which is a scholarship for students interested in pursuing a career in uh, research. And when I got that, Lisa Gates, who's the Dean of Fellowships here at Middlebury, suggested I apply to these UK fellowships. And there's a whole number of them that fund kind of a year or two of master's study. Um, that wasn't really something I was considering before that, but I started looking into it and it seemed like a really cool opportunity. And spent the spring and summer and fall writing applications, and was really lucky that one of these worked out.
There's so many things, exciting potentials to talk about in the things that you just said, but I want to take this step to the arduous, tedious, somewhat overwhelming process of applying for all of these things. Did you have to encourage yourself to do it? Was it to-do lists? What tips would you give for people who may be curious about this and then they look at the application process and say, I'd rather just go outside?
Yeah, it was certainly a little daunting. It ended up being like five different applications that I had to write um, to apply to the master's program, and then four different scholarships. And when I first looked at that, it seemed like a lot for sure. But that was nice about the way this application cycle worked out was each one had a deadline that was a month to a couple weeks before or after the other ones, so I could just kind of take them one at a time. And the writing was similar enough that a draft for one could be repurposed into a draft for another. So it was just kind of taking it a few chunks at a time. And when I found time over the summer, especially, and then into the fall, just writing, when I wasn't working on other things or doing other stuff.
Did you resist watching like season one of The Witcher so that you could work on the applications and like Netflix? I've really got to focus.
Yeah, maybe I fell behind on some of my watching for sure.
But well worth it. The other part that you said that's so exciting is this pure research that you'll be doing at this fellowship funds, that you can just go to the lab and do this work every day, trying to improve human health and humans' understanding of how these pathogens work. Why is that so exciting for you? How is that liberating for you as the in your mind?
Yeah, the kind of two things. I knew like coming out of college, I've been taking classes for the last 4 years. I think I was ready for a break from classes, especially because in 2 years I'm hopefully going to be starting a PhD program and I'll be back in class. Um, so I knew I wanted to do research, and it's a lot of master's programs in the UK have this kind of research only or research, primarily research focused. So that was one of the big things that kind of appealed to me and why I wanted to apply in the first place. And with this research in particular, the specific subtype of cells that this lab studies are called regulatory T cells, which are way less well studied than a lot of the other cells of the immune system, like a B cell, which like produces antibodies, which are obviously in the news a lot today, or other types of T cells, which are like helper T cells or cytotoxic T cells. Um, but these cells, so they're more recently discovered and less well known, but they have huge importance both in normal immune function. They've made knockout cells or knockout mice. So mice that don't have these cells, and they die pretty quickly because the rest of the immune system just gets completely unchecked and causes all this inflammation and tissue damage without kind of the checks that the regulatory T cells provide. And then in cancer, there's a natural immune response that is really important, and our immune cells can find cancer cells and target them, but regulatory T cells in that instance are actually problematic because they'll reduce the response of other cells of the immune system and kind of protect the cancer accidentally. So there's a lot of potential applications of where if we can manipulate a regulatory T cell activity, we can improve a lot of treatments for cancers or for autoimmune diseases or inflammation or things like that. And it just seems like an area that's both understudied and has huge potential clinical relevance, and that was really exciting to me.
This is, and forgive me, I have no idea if this is a question that is difficult, but are there members of your family that have suffered from cancer that sort of made you think about this, or is it just pure search of knowledge that drives you?
A little of both. I never met my grandfather. He passed away before I was born because of liver cancer. Um, but yeah, and that definitely maybe plays a role. But I also just think I've always been interested in kind of the questions in science that can do the most good, and can have the most actual real world significance and help people. So yeah, probably a little of both, I would say.
When you're talking with your fellow Middlebury seniors and other students that you're in class with, and you mention this opportunity that you're taking advantage of and you're going off, are they like, wow, oh my gosh, I can't believe it? Or is it more like, oh yeah, and I got this thing over here, I got this thing over here, I've got this thing over here?
Yeah, it's a funny time to be a senior because some people have definitely decided on what their jobs are next year and are pretty set, and a lot of people are not in that situation and have a lot of stress about jobs. So I haven't been broadly publicizing it around my friends because I know it's definitely next year's a stressful topic. People don't know where they're going to live. People don't know what they're going to be doing, and a lot of my friends are actually spending this like that break doing a lot of applications and stuff like that. So I feel very fortunate as do that I already went through these applications and I was forced to do it early because my application deadline was really early, and now I'm really pretty set for the next year or two, which is very, very lucky.
But it's like 100 days or something, isn't that the tradition at Middlebury for the last semester? And so you're just like coasting to that 4.0. That's what I'm imagining. How is the support at Middlebury College from faculty for you to do opportunities like this? Are they giving you opportunities, pointing them out, writing letters for you, things like that?
Yeah, it really been completely like none of this would have happened without support from a few people in particular, but broadly the Middlebury faculty. Lisa Gates, I mentioned earlier, is the dean of fellowships here. She is really, really good at her job. She knows a lot about all the different fellowships students can apply to in basically every field, and is really good at encouraging people to apply to the ones that they have a realistic shot at getting, and then helping with applications. And like I got so much feedback on my essays, on my interview prep, all that, working with her. And I've been working with her now for over a year because of the Goldwater application last year. And yeah, she's been so helpful. And again, I wasn't even going to consider applying to something like this without her. And then other faculty. I mean, that I work with Greg Pask. He was the one who kind of set this mid chat up.
Yes.
I've worked in his lab for a year and a half, 2 years now, since the start of junior year, and he's amazing. I've learned so much working with him. He's such a supportive mentor, and the research has been really interesting. And yeah, I just learned a lot, and I've been really lucky working in his lab. And then a lot of other faculty as well have been supportive in suggesting possible paths or like labs to apply to, writing letters of recommendation, things like that. Everyone is really excited when their students are seeking out this kind of opportunity, and has been really willing to help when I've asked, which has been great.
You've mentioned this a couple of times, and I think that it's worthwhile so people sort of understand what this is like working in a lab. And so there's what is that? And labs have names, like there's the Smith lab or the Jones lab where we do different things. What does that mean to work in a lab, and what is a lab community like?
Yeah. So I'll take for instance with the Pask Lab,
Yeah.
where um, it means I mean, so there's a physical lab room by Hall 318 where we go to when we want to do work. But it means we're working on research projects that are broadly aligned with what Greg has studied, and what his grant funding is in, and what his expertise is in, and what he's actively, because he also is in lab. J term, I was doing research, and I was in lab 9 to 5 as my class, and he was right there as well, also doing work. So it means my projects are aligned with his. Currently, what I'm working on is kind of a follow up to some of the work he did in his postdoc, and then I'm also working on a project that he brought over from Bucknell when he was working there. So yeah, I'm working kind of the projects I'm working on are driven by his interests and his work, and his expertise, and kind of mentoring as well. And in terms of the community, yeah, I mean, like one of my best friends, who I knew before we started working in his lab, is also in that lab. So since last fall, we've spent a lot of time in lab together. We work on similar projects, and then other people who maybe I wasn't as close with going in, but I've kind of become friends with because we're spending a lot of time, at the lab bench or in this room together. It kind of, yeah, it does build a sense of community, and I think at a bigger school, you get bigger labs with postdocs and PhD students and all that, but you still can I think form that sense of community. Maybe not, it might not be quite so tight knit. I worked remotely for a pretty large lab, summer 2020 and through last year as well, and it was definitely different. I didn't know people outside of the postdoc I was directly working under, and the other people on the one specific project quite so well, but that was a bit of a unique situation because it was so remote, and it is a huge lab. So
It sounds super collaborative. Like you may be working on something and then like, oh, I had this idea, or you share an idea, or someone says something and it sparks something. Is that, am I just imagining it wrong, or is it collaborative like that?
for sure, yeah, like we have a couple in the past now. We have a couple different projects. So I might not be directly working on one. Like we have some stuff that's been going on with imaging antenna of ants and such, and I don't work on that, but I'm there while it's happening. I've asked questions that have kind of influenced where that research has gone, and the same goes for what I've worked on. There are people who aren't on these specific projects because we do have a few different projects going on, but they're still helping out where possible, with like testing or things like that. Um, and definitely, yeah, it's a really collaborative kind of group work focused environment, which
That
is really
sounds
awesome.
so exciting because someone may be like, why are you doing that? And you're like, oh, I don't know why I'm doing that. That's a great question. Really helps bring some clarity. How exciting. The last thing, thank you for taking some time to talk to me during your break between you start the 100 days of your senior semester at Middlebury College. When you